Hello everyone. Yeah, I don't look like myself, do I? And my bed isn't made and I have no makeup on, and guess who doesn't care? I don't. This whole video is literally, I'm gonna tell you what happened to Sydney. I'm gonna tell you about my daughter, and I'm gonna tell you, what to expect at the end, and I'm gonna tell you how to handle it the way I did. There's no easy way to lose a pet, especially not as one as awesome as Sydney. She was a boxer. She was 13. She was born November 15th, 2005. I woke up with little Sydney Wiggles on my chest. The day before, my boyfriend at the time had taken me to a animal shelter to help me pick out a pet because I was still mourning the loss of my pug that had died 3 years prior. And I wasn't getting over it. So he took me, he let me look at the puppies. I found a little pit bull puppy. It sat on my foot, and it was the ugliest dog I ever seen. But because it sat on my foot, I was like, I'm going to take this one. And the guy told me I couldn't have it, that those dogs were going to be put down. So I went home, I cried my eyes out, I went to sleep. Next morning I wake up to something licking my face, and it was Sydney. A little boxer, little square face, little square butt, little wishbone face. She was such a brat. She didn't like me at first. She liked boys. She didn't like girls. I had to really, really earn her love. And when I escaped that relationship, I literally escaped with my purse and my dog, and we took off. And that little trip, she kind of bonded with me, and she realized, oh, I'm yours, you know. And then that was it. We were inseparable after that. She never ever chewed up anything she wasn't supposed to, except for one time. And it was a complete fuck you to me, completely, because I had spent like 3 or 4 days making this fairy out of clay, and it had Tibetan excuse me Tibetan lamb wool as the hair, these little butterfly wings, glass eyes. I had spent all this time on it, and I took off to Elowin's, who is in walking distance, and I didn't take Sydney with me, and all she wanted was to go on a walk. And when I came home, she had destroyed the fairy, was sitting next to it, and had taken a fat shit right next to it. It was the biggest fuck you I could ever get. But I couldn't even be mad, because I'm just like, I mean, I'm sure I was at the time, but it's like, you got me, girl. She called me out. If I ever told her I was going to take her on a walk, you know, Mom, I'm going to go take you on a walk after Mommy gets out of the shower. I'd get out of the shower, she'd look at me and be like, you promised her. And I'm like, okay, yeah, okay, let's go. Super, super smart. Yeah, all dogs beg, but mine actually would complain, you know, so. And she talked to me, and best friend doesn't even compare. She was my daughter. She acted like me, had my same personality. So freaking beautiful. I can't even. Sydney was the most beautiful. Every single person who ever met her loved her. Every single one. There's not one person who met her who didn't like her. She was incredibly special. She saved my life so many times, both from people and from myself. Because there was times where I was really depressed and really lonely and looking down kind of the barrel of a gun, if so to speak, and, well, the edge of a blade if it was me, right? And she stopped me. She wasn't even there at the point in time. Just thinking about her and knowing that she exists and that she's out there and that I have to get back to her. It stopped me. It saved me. Basically, the reason I'm a good person is because I had Sydney in my life. She helped me through every difficult thing I ever had. Every difficult moment, literally. She was there for me, and she protected me, and she kept me safe, and she kept me moving forward, and she kept me looking forward. She got pretty sick sometime last year, and I got her on antibiotics. It was either going to be a kidney infection, liver infection, or bladder infection. She was peeing blood. They put her on antibiotics. It cleared up for a little bit, but it wasn't long enough. If we had done tests, which I didn't have the money for, we would have found out it was early liver failure, which is kind of what I thought, but I didn't have money for tests. And Sydney is a bleeder, so I couldn't have her have the tests because there's a chance she would bleed out after getting them. So I did my best on that. I was giving her Zindicrine and DDR Prime. Those are 2 doTERRA supplements. I was taking it and she was taking it. I do think it helped. I do think it kept her going longer. I think that I got it to her too late. I didn't start giving her the DDR Prime till this last like a month ago, or the Zindicrine. And I think that if I had, like, last year done that, if I had known about that, or if I had been thinking about that, then maybe that would have helped. Sydney was 13 when she passed, which most boxers live to be 12. I know for a fact she stayed alive because Mama didn't live with her until last year. I had been gone for about 5 years, and I would come to visit, but I didn't get to see her nearly as much. She was supposed to be by my side 24/7. That is what I promised her, and I couldn't fulfill the promise. But I tried my best on the doTERRA oils. She got painkillers. She had gabapentin and tramadol, and they would take the pain away, but they also made her delusional. They also made her, she couldn't talk to me. She was like real slurred in her speech, and you're like, it's a dog, she can talk. No, she could talk to me. She couldn't talk to me then, though. It was too much. It clouded her up, you know, and she couldn't walk. It made her dizzy, and she was falling. It was horrible. It was the most traumatic, horrible. It was horrible. And then I thought, CBD oil, we had some, so I gave her some, and boy, thank you, Jesus, for CBD oil. If any of you have a pet or a family member who's in pain or fighting, give them the CBD oil. It took away her pain. She was walking again. She was talking again. She was eating again, which if you have a pet on the edge and they're not eating, you're not going to have them very long. So I got to have her longer because of the CBD, and she was happy during that time. I stayed by her 24/7 on the last couple days. If I had to go pee, I made sure somebody came and took my spot so she wasn't ever alone. There was a point in time where she wanted me to hold her and her legs had gone stiff, and I held her for like 45 minutes until my arms went out. It was the most horrible thing I've ever had to go through, watching my girl go. At the end of the day, though, Robbie, my twin flame, was there, and her daddy, Josh, was there. And I was just kissing her as many times as I could kiss her, and telling her about heaven, and how she's going to get to see Kathy again, and how she's going to see my grandpa and see Robbie's grandpa, and how she can run and chase as many rabbits as she wants, and she can do whatever she wants, and eat all the chicken. And I told her about it, and I could see the fear in her eyes go away, and she relaxed and she calmed down, because I said she's smart. She knows that baby one can know. I wish I hadn't cried so much in front of her. I tried to keep it, I tried to keep it under wraps, but at some point in time you just can't help it and you cry. I know that my fear for her was the only reason she had any at all. Because when I would reassure her and calm her down, she would be calm again. So if you have pets near the end, calm down, for them. You can break down after. You can break down, and trust me, I did. But you gotta be strong for them. Because they're your babies, and you want them to be happy, right? So I kept her on the CBD, and I kept petting her and kissing her, and she had 3 big gasps. And when she did the first one, I couldn't look. I closed my eyes and I just kissed her, and told her I love her so much, and I'm petting her. And by the 3rd one, I think she was gone. And I sat there and I cried, and I talked to her and I kissed her for about an hour. And then finally, Robbie and Josh had to pull me away, and they said, we gotta wrap her up. And they cleaned her up, and we put her in her blanket, all nice, her big fluffy one, and sat her back up on the couch with her head on a pillow so she was comfortable. And we had a wake for her. We had all the rest of our puppies come up and say goodbye to Annie City. And that was so hard because they would come up and they would sniff, and then they would get shocked, and then they would back up 4 feet, and they'd sit and they'd stare. So they got it really quickly. But her sister Bijou, not really her sister, but her sister by, my dog also, the Brussels Griffon, she didn't understand. She has breathing issues, and I don't think her smeller works so good. She's always got snotty nose. And so she had to sniff her several times, and every time she would get scared and do the back step, and then she'd sit there and turn her head and look, and then go up and sniff her again, and that was so hard for us, because how do you explain to Bijou, you know? And then Bijou went to sleep, and, I mean, right after, maybe 5 minutes after, and she started kind of barking, and I freaked out, well, something wrong with Bijou, and Josh said, no, listen, and we listened, and Bijou was making the most happy bark sound I have ever heard. The most happy to see you bark sound. And so I fully believe that she went to sleep and like that saw Sydney. Like that. I believe that her sister came to her and tell her that she's okay. And out of all of them who would need it, it would have been Bijou who needed that. You know? Because they were never apart. It's hard because she's not gonna come back, you know? She's gone for real. I might regret posting this one day, but fuck it, you know? So what if the internet's forever? This is real, and I'm all about being real, right? So this is real. So I had lit in a candle for Sydney. That bayberry one I was going to say for New Year's, I said screw it, and I just lit it, right? And I had made paw prints on flat rocks. I had painted Sydney's foot pink, and while she was around, and I pushed it onto rocks. So I have 4 paw prints, one for everybody who loved her the most, you know, one for her, like me, her daddy, and so on and so on. And they were sitting around the candle, and I prayed to the bayberry candle to please let Sydney pass without any pain, without any fear. Just let the best angels, the ones who love animals the most, to come and take her, you know, and allow her to see my grandpa and see Kathy and just be happy, and allow her to know that she can see her mama anytime she wants, and that I was going to be there soon, you know, in the blink of an eye. And I was sitting there praying to it, and I got a bubble at the top of it. You know how wicks sometimes get a bubble? Well, I don't know what you know, but every time a bubble comes up on a wick, you're going to get a black smoke. You're just going to. It's going to fog up the whole glass. And it usually means there's some kind of problem. There's something like sticking. There's a knot you got to get over. There's something, you know. And I was not going to let that glass turn black. That was my dog's candle. Damn it. And I was not going to let it not work. And so I did some reading, and I went on Lucky Mojo, and I read about what they say about candles. And I'm sitting there reading, and the lady talking about, you know, sometimes there's a knot in the candle, and it'll turn into twin flames, or it'll do this and that, and it'll smudge at the glass, and it'll always be a bad reading because this and that. And at the bottom of it, it says, but I like to trim the wick, clean the candle, do what I have to do, baby it, and nurse it back to health the same way I would a sick pet to get the results I want. That's what it said. Nurse it back to health like the same you would a sick pet. And I'm sitting there nursing my baby. And I took that as a sign that I needed to fuck with this candle. So I cut the knot off of it. And it was a big old bubble. And it cleaned up the glass. And then about half an hour later, there was a small little bubble. And I cut that one off. And about 20 minutes later, there was another small bubble. And I cut that one off. And then it didn't do it anymore. And the fog around the glass was that light grayish white, that pretty fog color, that one where you know the spirits have listened. I'm glad I messed with the candle because I feel like it helped. I feel like she passed because I had put that energy that she's going to pass nice and easy as a dog could go. I begged to take her pain. Any pain that she's going to feel, let me feel it. Any kind of anything. I don't want her to feel shit. Let me feel it. I will take it all on gladly so that she doesn't have to feel it. Yesterday night, I thought I was going to die. We had dropped her off to be cremated. And literally, I thought I was going to die. My heart hurt more than it's ever hurt. But not like sad. Like it's going to explode. It was beating irregular. My stomach was cramping and in pain, just so much pain. I was having nerve firings all throughout my body. I couldn't really breathe. I ended up getting so hot that it was just sweat pouring from my body. I was shaking, almost convulsions. My love thought I was having a heart attack or something. I think what I was feeling was the pain that she would have felt. It felt like I was dying. I wanted to die. It felt so horrible. I wanted death. It felt so horrible. But after it passed, I cried and I was happy because I know that was my prayer being answered. It let me have her pain so that she didn't have to have it. I truly believe that. So the hardest part was figuring out what to do with her body afterwards, because it's my girl. I cleaned her up, like I said. We put her in the coldest room in the house, in the back, in the radio room. And I lit a candle for her so she wouldn't be alone, and that she would have that light with her throughout the night. And I lit a bunch of incense, and I kept going in and lighting incense. I told myself not to look at her again at like 1 or 2 that night. I mean, not to undo the blanket and see her face or anything. Something told me don't do it. And I honestly know she wasn't there, because when she was sitting on the couch next to me, when she was first wrapped up, like I said, it was like an hour after she died that I let them wrap her up. And then I sat by her until like 3 that afternoon, because we had to wait for my roommate to come home so she could say goodbye before we moved her. And I was sitting there and I literally felt her leave. I mean, she had already died, but I could still feel my baby next to me. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I didn't feel her anymore. It's like I felt her leave. And I think that her little soul just stayed around long enough to see what was going on. And then once she understood, she took off. She took off, crossed the Rainbow Bridge, crossed to heaven. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for being next to her at that moment. Because every time I went in that room to light an incense, I talked to her. You know, I said, my baby one, your mom is here again. But I felt like I was completely alone. I didn't feel like she was in that room at all. And I'm grateful. Because I've had a friend who killed himself, and I swear to God he could have opened his eyes at any moment during his wake. At any moment. He was already embalmed. I could feel that he was in there still. Sydney wasn't in there. She was gone. We called around. Well, we didn't. My love called around for me because I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle calling around. He called Fresno Pet Cemetery. They took 2 hours to call him back, and then they told her, you can drop it by it. It, motherfucker. It. Talk about my daughter like that? Fuck you. Fuck you, Fresno Pet Cemetery. You can go to hell. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I'm just... You know, it's like, that's your baby. That is your loved one. That is your daughter. That's my daughter. And then they wanted to say that they were going to ship her off somewhere else, and it could be 2 weeks to a month to get her back. Screw that. Where is she during that time? Is she stacked up in a box? Do they treat her like FedEx and like punch it through screw that. You know? And they were so expensive. They were going to be like $210 to have me ship my girl off to God knows who, to God knows where, and maybe I get her back. Maybe they were good to her, maybe they weren't. Probably not, you know? I couldn't do it. I didn't want to bury her because I didn't want the worms and the bugs to get her, because she's beautiful. My baby one is beautiful. And she didn't deserve that. And I know everything rots, but she didn't deserve that, you know? I'm still going to plant a tree in her name, but I couldn't put her in the cold ground. I couldn't do it. And my love calls Franklin Pet Cemetery in Merced. Thank you, Franklin Pet Cemetery. I cannot suggest to everybody enough. Please, 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 if you are anywhere near Merced, anywhere, took me like 45 minutes to get there, take your baby to Franklin Pet Cemetery. The woman there was so nice, so sweet. She called her my baby. I walk in, I say, I've got my daughter in the car. She's like, what breed is your baby? Cinnamon Brindle. Oh, what's her name? Sydney Wiggles. And she called her Sydney for the rest of the time. Like a person. Because she was my little person. And I had brought a bag of lavender and roses and red clover and lovage root and else did I put in there? Oh, jasmine flowers. And I put a little bit of Hydron the Conqueror, some Palo Santo, grains of paradise, whole elderberries, some glitter that I've had since I was a child. That was my very first fairy dust I ever got, and some gold leaf. And I asked the woman if she would please, please, please sprinkle it around my baby girl so that she could have a pretty funeral, so that she would know that she wasn't just thrown on a slab and forgotten, because it's the last thing that, it was the only way that her mommy could be there with her while they did it. And she understood, and she took it back there herself. And she promised me that she would do it herself. And Robbie went back and looked at the facilities, because I've heard too many creepypasta stories where they like take the animal or take the person and then they never do anything with them. They just throw them in a hole and they give you cement dust. And I was like freaking out, right? So he went back and looked at it all, and he said it was so legit and that people were very kind and nice. She even gave me a hug. And she seemed to really care and really to understand that this was not a dog. This was my love. This was my soulmate and my daughter. So, if you made it this far, which I don't know who's dark enough to be able to watch this whole thing, but if you made it this far, you know, check out Franklin Pet Cemetery. Use the CBD oil. Stay away from gabapentins. Stay away from tramadol. Stay away from pharmaceutical drugs with your animals. If you want to have their last days where they're like them, give them the CBD oil. Don't force the pills. It's not worth it. Thank you to Franklin Pet Cemetery. I am forever in your debt. You don't even know. You don't even know. Huge thank you to Nancy Lawson for giving me one more year with my girl. If it wasn't for you, Nancy, I would have been gone, or she would have been gone last year. I wouldn't have had this year. And we all know that would have been a bad end. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for letting me rant. I just need to talk about it. All right, thank you. Bye.